I never expected to win the lottery. People like me don't win. We work hard, sacrifice, and make sure our children have everything they need. But fate has a funny way of changing things when you least expect it. The moment the numbers flashed on the screen, I couldn't believe my eyes. $20 million. The kind of money that could change everything. I had just turned 66, and it felt like the perfect timing. A week away from my birthday, and here I was, with the weight of a lifetime's work lifted off my shoulders in a single moment. I had always dreamed of being able to give something back to my children, Logan and Luna, something they'd truly appreciate, something that could show them how much I loved them, despite the years of sacrifice. After taxes, I would be left with about $10 million, enough to buy them both luxury homes, a future they could enjoy without worry. And that's exactly what I planned to do. A house for each of them, with plenty of space, comfort, and room to grow. And on top of that, I would write them each a check for $1 million. I wanted them to know that their mother could give them more than just love. I could give them security, freedom. So, I spent the day preparing for the birthday dinner. It was a tradition of mine, something I'd always done for them. I made their favorite dishes, taking care to get every detail right. Logan loved spicy food, and Luna always asked for sweet and sour dishes. I set the table with the fine china, just like I always did when they were younger. It felt like the perfect moment. This was it. This was the night I would finally share my good fortune with the people who mattered most to me. But as the clock ticked on, something didn't feel right. The anticipation I felt as I placed the final dish on the table quickly turned into a pit in my stomach. By 10 p.m., neither Logan nor Luna had arrived. I called them both, but no one picked up. Luna had called earlier to apologize, saying she was working late and might be home later than expected. Logan had texted, explaining that he was caught up with a project at work. At first, I understood. Work was important. I told myself they would be here soon. They always came when I needed them. But as the hours slipped by, I started to worry. The food was getting cold. The candles flickered in the dimming light. By 11:00, my calls went unanswered. My messages sat there, unread. I sent a quick note in our family group chat, asking when they would be coming. I stared at the screen, waiting for the familiar read receipt, the sign that they were at least acknowledging me. But nothing. Nothing at all. I moved to the couch, feeling the weight of the night pressing down on me. I tried to fight the feeling of abandonment, but it crept in. There, on the coffee table, were the real estate contracts, and the checks I had prepared for them, 2 homes, $2 million gifts. It was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, I was alone. By the time I dozed off on the couch, the reality sank in. This wasn't just a small delay. I had waited, prepared everything, but they hadn't shown up. I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. The dream of sharing this moment with them, the dream I had spent so long building, had crumbled in front of me. And that was the hardest part. I had given so much for them. And now, I was left staring at the silence. Just as I was about to drift off to sleep on the couch, my phone buzzed, pulling me out of my thoughts. I didn't need to look at the screen to know who it was. Sophia's name flashed, and for a brief second, I allowed myself to hope. Maybe she had been caught up in something, but she was calling now to explain. Maybe they were on their way. I answered quickly, my voice thick with a mix of exhaustion and expectation. Sophia? Mama, I'm so sorry. She rushed, her words tumbling out. Work was just overwhelming. I won't be able to make it tonight, it's too late now. I'll just head back to my place, you should go to bed early. The line went dead before I could even respond. My heart sank, a crushing weight settling in my chest. The disappointment hit like a tidal wave, and for a moment I just sat there, staring at the darkened phone screen, my mind racing. Was this really happening? I had spent my entire life giving everything I had to them. All the long hours, the sacrifices, the love, nothing was ever too much. And this was how they repaid me? By abandoning me on my birthday? I couldn't stop the thoughts from spiraling. It wasn't just the missed birthday. It was the realization that my children, the ones I had raised, nurtured, and sacrificed for, were slowly pulling away from me. Had I been blind all these years? Had I given them everything, only to find they were no longer interested in what I had to offer? The idea of them moving on, of them choosing someone else over me, gnawed at my soul. For years, I worked hard to make sure they never lacked for anything. I had poured myself into them, believing that one day they would see the value of the sacrifices I made. But now, on my birthday, I felt more invisible than ever. The next morning, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. The weight of the night was still heavy on my shoulders, and I needed space to think. As I strolled down the street, my neighbor, Elaine, spotted me and waved, walking over with her dog in tow. "You're usually up bright and early, Martha," she said with a smile. "What took you so long today?" I gave her a forced smile, too embarrassed to admit that I had stayed up waiting for my children, hoping they'd show up. Elaine, ever the practical one, shrugged and casually said, "I told you ages ago. Why don't you just book a dinner at a nice restaurant? Less stress, less hassle. You always go through all this trouble for them. But do they appreciate it?" Her words struck me harder than I expected. I hadn't really thought about it that way before. Had I spent my whole life catering to their needs at the expense of my own? Had I been so focused on making them happy that I'd forgotten to ask myself if I was happy? Just then, I saw Tina, the woman I'd once worked with years ago, coming down the street. Tina and I had never been friends. Her constant needling and jealousy had always made things awkward between us. But today, she wasted no time in offering her advice. "You really think your kids care, don't you?" she sneered, eyeing me like I was a fool. "Why bother? They'll never appreciate you. And now they've got Rebecca, don't they?" My stomach dropped. How did she know about Rebecca? I hadn't spoken about her to anyone. Tina reached into her bag and pulled out her phone, swiping quickly before shoving it in my face. "Look at this," she said, her voice dripping with malice. "I saw this last night. They're all at some fancy celebration with David and Rebecca." I glanced at the screen, my heart stopping as the video played. It was a clip of my children, Zachary and Sophia, standing with David, their father, and Rebecca, the woman who had torn my family apart. They were all laughing together, celebrating like one big happy family. But then, the worst part. I watched in shock as my granddaughter appeared in the video, smiling brightly as she tugged at Rebecca's sleeve. "Grandma Rebecca," she said, her voice innocent, filled with love. "You're so pretty, way prettier than my other grandma." The words hit me like a punch in the stomach. I felt my chest tighten, my breath shallow. They had chosen her, over me. My children, my flesh and blood, were standing there with the woman who had destroyed everything, embracing her as if she were their real family. Tina's cruel laugh echoed in my ears as she watched my reaction. "They don't need you anymore," she said smugly. "You gave them everything, and now they've turned their backs on you." I felt a wave of nausea rise in me. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a complete erasure of everything I had worked, for everything I had sacrificed. They were choosing Rebecca, the woman who had never given them anything, over me, the mother who had given them everything. I turned away from Tina without a word, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath me. There was nothing left to say. I had nothing left to give. I had spent years fighting for their love, only to find that it was never mine to keep. I collapsed onto the couch, the weight of the night and the betrayal too much to bear. My body felt like a rag doll, limp and drained of every ounce of energy. I didn't try to hold back the tears this time. They came in a flood, unrelenting and raw. I'd spent so many years keeping them in check, burying them beneath the endless tasks of motherhood. But now there was nothing left to hide behind. Each tear felt like a release, a momentary relief from the hurt. But the grief was suffocating. I had given everything. My time, my love, my energy, all my waking moments spent for them. Every sleepless night spent worrying about their future, every sacrifice I made, hoping they would see how much I cared. But none of it had mattered. Zachary and Sophia, the two people I had poured everything into, were choosing Rebecca over me. And it was then, in that crushing silence, that I realized they had never truly appreciated me, or the lengths I had gone to for them. It wasn't just about the missed birthday. It was more than that. It was the realization that I had spent my entire life living for others, my children, my husband, my family. I had sacrificed my own happiness, my own dreams, my own needs for the sake of others. And what did I get in return? Rejection. A quiet abandonment. Forgotten in favor of Rebecca, the woman who had come into my life and taken everything I held dear. I had given them all my love, my dedication, and now I had nothing left. No family. No support. Just a hollow echo of the life I once thought I had built. As the tears subsided, something shifted inside me. It wasn't immediate. It was slow, like the first light of dawn pushing through a long night. For the first time, I allowed myself to think about something I'd buried for so long. Myself. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their validation. I had spent a lifetime molding my life around others, sacrificing every part of myself, and for what? To be left alone when I needed them most. No. This had to stop. I wiped my eyes, sat up, and took a deep breath. This was the moment I had been avoiding, the moment I had feared would come. But now that it was here, I realized something important. I didn't need to keep giving. I had already given everything I had. I had given them all of me. But now, I needed to give something to myself. I called the lawyer the next morning. I made arrangements to secure my wealth, to ensure that my assets would be donated to charity after I was gone. There was no reason to hold on to it any longer. What would I leave it for? My children? No. They had chosen their path, and I would choose mine. I sold the house, the one I had once thought of as a home for my family. It was the house I had poured my soul into, the house that had witnessed so many years of sacrifices, dreams, and disappointments. But it no longer held any meaning for me. I moved into a small villa, tucked away in a quiet corner of town. For the first time in my life, I was living for me. I wasn't cooking meals for anyone. I wasn't cleaning up after others. It was peaceful. It was mine. And in that silence, in that newfound freedom, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. For the first time, I could breathe. No more catering to the needs of people who didn't care. No more sacrificing myself for others. I would build a life that was mine, and mine alone. A life that was full of peace, quiet, and joy. I wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, I felt like I could face it. It was time to let go. And this time, I was letting go for me. Months had passed since I moved into the villa, and for the first time in my life, I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. The house was mine, quiet and full of potential. I had built a small cafe bookstore, just as I had always dreamed. It wasn't about making money or gaining fame. It was about creating something that was truly mine. A space I could fill with books and coffee, with warm conversation and silence when I needed it. I hired people with disabilities, people who needed a second chance. I treated them with kindness and respect, something they didn't often get in the world outside. And in turn, they helped me grow. Every day was a new opportunity to live for myself, to enjoy the work I did and the life I had fought so hard to build. But life, as it often does, has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. One afternoon, as I was putting the finishing touches on a new display of books, I heard a knock at the door. It was a sound I hadn't heard in months, so foreign and so familiar all at once. I didn't need to check the peephole to know who it was. The moment I opened the door, I saw them. Zachary, Sophia, and standing beside them, David and Rebecca. I blinked in disbelief, unable to grasp the sight before me. They were standing on my doorstep, looking around at the villa, their faces a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. It felt like a scene from a dream, a nightmare, really. "We've been trying to reach you," Zachary said, his voice flat, like he was speaking to someone he barely knew. We reported you missing." I stared at him, my heart sinking. They were here, showing up after months of silence, like nothing had happened, like everything was just fine. "I'm not missing," I said, my voice steady but cold. "I'm living my life, and you should be living yours." The awkwardness in the air was thick, like they didn't quite know how to act in the life I had built without them. But I wasn't going to play their game. Not anymore. Zachary opened his mouth to speak again, but I cut him off. "I'm not interested in any of your demands," I said, not even a hint of hesitation. "If you need something, go to Rebecca. She's the one you've chosen, the one you've decided is your family." Sophia stepped forward, her eyes red and puffy, her hands clutching her stomach. She was pregnant, something I hadn't known, hadn't even thought about until now. She looked at me, desperate, almost pleading. "Mom," she said, her voice shaky. "You promised me a wedding gift. I need it now. I can't do this without your help." I didn't flinch. "I don't have anything left to give you," I said quietly, firmly. "If you want help, go to Rebecca. She's the one you've put your trust in." Sophia's face twisted in anger. She looked like she was about to say something, but instead, the words burst from her in a sharp cry. "You ruined everything for us. If you hadn't made a scene at City Hall, none of this would have happened. You tore our family apart." My heart shattered at the accusation. I had tried so hard to make things work, to save them from the mess their father had made of our lives, but it was never enough. It never would be. "Get out," I said, the words coming out of me with a finality I had never known I was capable of. "I don't have children like you." Sophia's face paled, but she didn't argue. She turned and walked away, Zachary trailing behind her. They didn't look back. I didn't need them to. The door closed behind them with a soft thud, and for the first time in my life, I felt a weight lift from my chest. I didn't chase after them. I didn't beg them to stay. I had spent years chasing their love, their approval. But no more. I was free. And I would stay free. Months passed in the quiet rhythm of my new life. The cafe bookstore was thriving. It had become my sanctuary, a place where I could create, breathe, and share my love for books and coffee. I poured myself into my work, enjoying the simple things, the laughter of my employees, the soft hum of conversation, the quiet moments with a good book. For once, I didn't feel the weight of expectations bearing down on me. I was free, truly free, for the first time in years. Then, one day, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen, seeing an unknown number flashing. I hesitated before picking it up. It was David. "Martha." "It's me." His voice was weak, strained. I just wanted to say, "I'm sorry. For everything." I felt nothing. Not anger, not relief. Just a quiet, unshakable calm. He had made his choice long ago. And in that moment I realized I didn't need their apologies. I didn't need their regrets. They had chosen their path, and I had chosen mine. David passed shortly after that call. I didn't feel the rush of emotion that I had expected. I didn't feel any sense of closure. Instead, I felt a weight lift from my chest. I was done with that chapter of my life. Done with the constant cycle of trying to fix things, trying to make people see my worth. My mother called me after, pleading with me to visit him before he passed. But when I went, I saw nothing but the man who had never been there for me. His death didn't change anything. I walked away, and in that moment, I knew I would never go back to the life I had lived for others. The life of sacrifice. The life of putting everyone else's needs ahead of my own. I continued to live for myself, surrounded by people who valued me, who respected me. My children were no longer part of my life, but I didn't need them. I had found peace in the silence they left behind. My cafe bookstore flourished, and I flourished with it. I let go of the past, and for the first time, I could truly live in the moment. I had spent a lifetime giving to others, but now I would only give to myself, and that was enough.